All right, let's go ahead and get started. First thing we will talk about here is um, global settings. So this is something that a lot of people ignore or just don't notice here. So let's go over those really quick and show you the global settings and how those can affect the way that you're doing your day-to-day. So in here, the most important one is going to be down here in defaults, but you also have a lot of auxiliary settings up here. So I'm just going to go through them really quickly on the top, and then we'll spend a little bit more time on the defaults. Personal settings, those are pretty basic stuff. Priority bar. So you can either show this priority bar over in the, let me go over to here on the properties page. You can either show, so if I go to the properties page, I'll actually show you where it happens. Sorry, properties. Over here, it does take some time to load if you have a ton of properties and you're not filtering properly. So if you're just loading all 5,000 or 10,000 transactions that you have going on over the course of time with no limits on, hey, I just want to see my pending, or I just want to see my buyers that are pending, or whatever, this can take some time to load. So if you aren't using the health bar here and you want this screen to load faster, then you can go ahead and you can take this off your screen. Okay, so and that is loading all that information in there every time you do this table. So it does take some time here. Okay, so let me go back over to global settings and I will show you. Let's see here, property table settings. So you can just take that off. You can just say hide that bar. Okay, task settings. Full layout. So this is fully expanded in your tasks, and you have the collapse version. Most people use the collapse version, and then just when they need to open it up, they can open it up. But when you open it up, it shows all the different roles that are assigned to that task, the people that are assigned to the task. If you're using Follow-Up Boss, there's some Follow-Up Boss information on how to send a task over to Follow-Up Boss. So most people like the collapse version so that they can see more tasks on their screen, but it's totally up to you. Note settings. This feature actually is done now, so we could probably take this off, but it's always going to be Kanban in your task pipeline instead of having that list view. Okay, notes. This is important. Do not exclude notes. So by default, we exclude all notes from the agent and client's view. Now you can set those up in your templates so that they're already pre-set up, but we like to have them excluded so that you don't accidentally type something in that wasn't meant for a client or agent. But if you are totally comfortable in the way you're using them and you don't want to have to unexclude them for them to see, then go ahead and come in here and you can, 4 different categories, you can unexclude those by default. Just be careful. If you're typing anything in other than stuff that is client agent viewable, you may get yourself in some trouble. All right, counters, we don't need to really worry about that. Let's go down to text settings. Do you want incoming text, send an email with an incoming text? So do you want an email to be sent out to you so that you know that text is in there and you can read through these? So you have some options whether you want email sent to your email inbox or not. I'll skip down here. So .loop, SkySlope, Brokerment, they're all basically the same. The one thing you do want to watch is down here, if you have duplicates, what do you want to do the duplicate by? Do you want to do it by the .loop internal ID, or do you want to do it by the email address? So depending on which one of these you're using, they all have the same option. Okay. And then you can read the overwrite rules as well. Okay, let's go to defaults because this is the big one. Okay, let's start at the top here. Trigger file rules. So this is actually, you know what, that's probably the most difficult one. Let's start at some easier ones and then we'll go over because I'm going to have to bounce from screen to screen. And then I'm going to let Jana jump in after I go through these because she has some content that she's been asked from other people. So broker sign button, this is over in your documents. There is a BR button. If you don't use it, go ahead and you can hide it. I use it for if I've submitted a doc and the broker has fully approved it, we go ahead and put a green on there so we don't have to keep bouncing over to Command or SkySlope or wherever to find out if that has been approved. In your one sheets, do you want to remove empty fields? So sometimes in your one sheet, you have maybe like 40 fields you're showing someone. Well, if they're blank, you may not want to clutter up your one sheet. So you can take that off and you can just say, yes, I want to remove the fields. Do you want the fields to go left to right or stacked? I usually go stacked on that. Contact table filters, this is for the agent portal. Do you want your agents to have some ability to filter down their list? That was similar to the screen we were just on, that property screen. And you can say, hey, I want to see my buyers that are pending. Well, you have that option for the agents too, if you want to turn all that on for them. If you're a team and you're very collaborative with your agents, then you may want to turn on sharing of your database so they can see everyone in your database as they're typing stuff into their intake forms. Now, if you're a TC company, you probably want to turn this off so that the agents don't see your database. Sharing contacts with the team. Now, this is if the agent, this is one that comes up quite a bit, and we actually added this in probably the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 months. This one is if they are submitting intake forms. Those agent contacts that they're submitting do not get added to your database by default. We don't want to clutter up your database with agent contacts. So if you do want those to come in for future use, then you can go ahead and say yes, and now all your team members, your TCs, are going to be able to see all of those contacts that were put into intake forms and manually entered contacts by the agents. Okay, merge fields, you can read through this, it's pretty self-explanatory. Do you want these headings out front? I like them so that, you know, if there's 4 phone numbers, they know what they are, but some people didn't want that, so we gave them the ability to take that off. File sorting, do you want the sort that you put on? I prefer this, like in my document templates. I want the documents to be in some kind of order that I want them in. I just don't want them A to Z. So you have that option. Renaming files. So when I put a file role on the document, I want it to rename to that. I don't want to have to manually change 123 Main Street PDF every single time to residential purchase contract or whatever my nomenclature is for that. So you can have that automatically update. Additional files, these are the files that sit under the main file. So if you have 56 photos, the first photo may be the main file, and then the other, you know, the remainder of those are in additional files. Do you want those renamed as well? So you can do that. Okay, this is the big one. This one is if you're setting off automation by a file role. So let's say you're saying, anytime this file exists, I want you to send this document or send this email or, you know, whatever you want to do. So some people, though, in their document templates don't want to have to sign that file role every single time a new document comes in. So they want to preset those file roles over in their document templates. Well, what this is going to do is the file actually must exist. The physical PDF or JPEG or whatever you're putting in there, that must exist for it to set off those conditions. So just because the file role is there doesn't mean it's going to set off those conditions. You have to have the file role and you have to have the file actually existing in the property. So that's it for that. I'm going to go over to a Documents tab real quick and show you what I just talked about there, just so it's a little bit clearer. Okay, so over here in this, you can see that there's a document in here. We preset all these file roles here, so we didn't have to do it during the transaction. We already know that these file roles are going to be set in these placeholders. Well, now this is not going to trigger this automation because this paperclip isn't highlighted purple. As soon as this paperclip is highlighted purple and that file role set, now it's going to go ahead and fire off that automation. So very powerful. This will save you a lot of time presetting those file roles, so you don't have to do it during the transaction. You just have to be aware of that setting, whether you want just, some people don't even bring documents in the system. I think that's a huge mistake. There's too much automation and too much power in those documents not to bring them in the system. The time it takes you to upload a document and to open to close, you're going to save that 10 times over by the automations you can set up in the future with that. But some people don't, and so they want the automations to trigger just off the file role. Okay, so in that case, you may want to not set your file roles in your document templates and then just have the automation trigger when that file role comes in, regardless if there's an actual file in there, because they're not bringing in their actual files. So, okay, that's it for global settings. I am going to turn it over. Jana, did you have some things that you wanted to talk about that came up in client calls?
Yeah, it's actually kind of similar to what you're touching on here with document management. Just kind of adding in the dot loop or sky slope strategy as well. We've been seeing this question more and more with our implementation calls of how do I use my open to close account well with dot loop or with my sky slope, because you may be creating those documents in that system and it may feel like we're duplicating some efforts. You touched on something there too, Andrew, of just using open to close for document management. And I think that's where a lot of this comes from. When we look at dot loop for contract creation, signing documents, it's a really powerful system. But with Open to Close, you're going to see more powerful automations around email templates and being able to auto attach your documents in the emails that you're sending out through that contract to close period. And so looking at Dotloop and how we'd set that up on a property, Andrew has gone over to that More tab on the right-hand side, and you can see in the left-hand corner a list of all of our APIs. So whether you're using SkySlope.loop, this is going to be where you set up that initial connection between your loop and your property record. So if we click on Dotloop on that one, let's see if this one's already connected.
I'm going to click on SkySlope just because SkySlope I already know is connected on this one.
Okay.
Connected on this particular property.
Perfect. That's another good point. Typically, you're going to have a connection to one of those systems at a time. If you need to start out with Dotloop, you can certainly do that and then connect your property to your SkySlope after that initial push. But let's say we are getting our SkySlope set up here. Oh, yeah, great point there. That's where.
Yeah, just kind of throw that in. If you did start with, you wanted to bring in some Dotloop stuff, and then later you wanted to sync it over to SkySlope for your brokerage, all you'd have to do is come in, bring in your Dotloop, and then you could disconnect Dotloop, and then you could link up SkySlope.
Perfect. Thank you. So with that, when we click on the import contacts, import deals, that is going to allow us to pull information over. With this, let's say this was Dotloop, you're going to see a very similar screen. When we select one of those buttons, it's going to allow us to move forward with that connection. It may ask us to fill out a couple of details here. This is our contacts that we can select and push over, and then the roles that we have selected as well. So this is going to be that initial push or pull between your systems. Once we set up that connection, you can push your documents over from the property to, let's say, SkySlope or to Dotloop from your Documents tab. So after the initial push. And I think that's a really important thing for you guys if you're using these systems to know that, let's say you just got your title commitment in. If we use the property email address to bring that document in. And if you actually click out of that real quick, as Andrew's cursor is hovering over it, this property email is going to allow you to forward content over. And so when you click on that, it's going to copy the email address to your clipboard. You can hop into your email account, wherever that may be, send your content to your property, and any attachments on that email will be uploaded to that Documents tab for you to approve. So a really powerful way to push your documents into the system so you can then go through, organize, and assign your file roles. Once we get that push in, over on the kind of the left-hand column with the arrow to push a document to a system, you can click on one of those to the left of your fully executed. Yep. So that if this was Dotloop, this would be where we can go to upload a document to Dotloop. So this is kind of the main question that we're seeing is how do we be efficient with that? How do we push documents after that initial sync between that platform? Again, the really main powerful thing here is really your automations. Like Andrew was touching on, we can have your conditions based around your file roles, the documents you have uploaded, but also the quick attachment to your emails. When we look at typing up an email, uploading a document, generally that takes anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes. By pulling your documents into Open to Close, you guys are going to shave that time down to maybe seconds. It could be just a quick approval for you instead versus typing that email every single time.
Let me add a little something in here. So there is a way up here. So if you go new, okay, you do have the ability to import a loop straight off, okay, or import SkySlope or import BrokerMet. I think what me and Jana, we're trying to express to you is this is probably not the best way unless there's a special circumstance. So we're happy to go over that with you, but our intake forms are so powerful and the way that they work, you can fill out fields. Those fields can later trigger certain things to happen, right? So you can have document templates come in and task templates and date templates and all these templates that are going to help you out with your transaction. And you're not going to have to do them manually. So we prefer, unless it's a special circumstance, to use the intake form, whether it's the TC filling it out or whether it's the agent filling it out, and not using the import straight from these third-party vendors. What we, like Janet was telling you, is once you're in the transaction, once you let your intake form do all that work for you and get everything set up and get all your templates applied and start calculating dates and do all this, now you can come over here to the More tab. Now you can come to dot loop. I'm going to click SkySlope here for a second, but you could come to dot loop in that example that she gave you. And now you can go ahead and push or pull depending on what you're trying to do here to link those up. So just, you know, a lot of people just default to, because they don't know any better, importing a loop. You're losing all the functionality of our intake forms, which are kind of the glue. Well, I don't even say the glue. They are the glue that holds everything together, but they're also just so powerful in setting up the transaction that 30 to 60 minutes that you're spending setting up a transaction can be definitely whittled down to 5 to 15 minutes, depending on how much pre-transaction tasks you have. So, you know, a little diatribe there, but you know, it's just so important to know that that intake form is more powerful than the import from those services.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you, Jen. I just want to make sure they fully
No,
understand.
it's beautiful. Yeah, no, it's good. And I think that's a lot of, you know, strategy when you sit down and think of the data that you're going to be managing in the system. So if you guys have questions on your integrations, please reference our knowledge base. We have a lot of great content that's going to go through the initial setup for your integrations, but also just using that in your day-to-day.
Okay, I got a question here. I use document templates. So far, I haven't been able to trigger them to come in with the intake. I always apply them manually. So that may be the problem. But the question is, when I request a contract on the intake form, why will it not go to the appropriate placeholder? I have to move it from the contract documents folder and then delete it. Yeah, so that's just the way the system's set up right now. We will be working on documents a little bit more in the future, but for right now, the way this works is when you're over in the intake form, let me show you. Because I do a little something in here just to alert myself when I'm, let me get down to one that I think has something in it. Okay, so if we come down to documents and we're going to give our agents the choice, you know, do you want a bunch of documents in here that they have to upload, or do you just want one folder called all contract documents? Totally up to you. What I like to do is come in here and I like to name this intake. Okay, so that I know that this folder came in from the intake. Don't have this connected because there's so many different types of document templates, and we just don't have the functionality yet to be able to say, go look through the 150 document templates that this person has, choose this one, do this, do that. So we're just not there yet. We will be in the future, I'm sure. But for right now, the best practice here is to put intake after these so you know which folders came in from your intake and which folders came in from your templates, and how they're going to come in from your templates is coming over here to form triggers, and you're going to say, let me just see, here's a template one, the first one up. So add the template, and the template's going to be, we're going to add a document template. So let's just say this, if HOA is yes, add in the documents, the HOA documents. So we're going to go ahead and close that. We're going to come up to add conditions, and we'll just say, I don't know what's in here. So we're just going to do property field and hope there's an HOA field in this demo account. But HOA, is equal to, hopefully have a yes or no. Okay, perfect. So, and now we can go ahead and close this. Okay, if HOA community is equal to yes, then go ahead and add. And so that plus button's an add, a minus sign is a subtract, or take it out. So you're adding the HOA docs document template. This is going to save you a lot of time from having to manually do these, especially as you get better with the system and you have, you know, 4 task templates coming in, 5 document templates, you know, a date template, this template, that template. Like, it's a lot of manual entry. That's what we designed this for, so that you could say, if financing is yes, go ahead and add in my loan, you know, document template. If HOA is yes, add in my HOA document template. If solar is yes, add in my solar document template. So you can see how powerful and time saving this can be by doing this. So to answer your question specifically, you don't need to, but in the interest of time and best practice, you're going to want to set these triggers so that all these templates come in automatically. Okay.
Something else I'd like to add on that as well is if Andrew clicks back on that template sort of circle again, this oblong circle, you can also bring in your HOA tasks. So if you wanted to sort of double up it, you can bring in HOA tasks and HOA documents and have it built off the same logic of if HOA is equal to yes, then bring on both of these. That is typically what I suggest. That way, if I'm bringing on my HOA, if I'm doing my HOA tasks, I know I need my HOA documents. Let me bring that on as well. You can bring on any number of task templates, document templates, and even date templates if you want to. Now, one thing with date templates that I probably wouldn't suggest is the only reason we don't like to group them with our document templates and our task templates is because date templates is something that we want to run. It's the very last thing or the very first thing, and Jana will probably correct me, that needs to run before the transaction is approved. Jana, is it right when I believe it's the last thing when it's submitted, right?
Yep.
Awesome. And that's why adding in details to those different triggers is really crucial as well. So if Andrew, if you click out of this and then you click into the details for that first trigger and you type in blah, 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 type in whatever you want, you can just slam on the keyboard if you want. Perfect. And then when Andrew says enter, obviously it's going to save it so we can see it. But he can click on sort triggers. And that's how we're sort of determining, okay, in what order do we want these triggers to come in? So if you click on sort triggers, what we always suggest is bringing in your field sections first. And this is obviously not a good example. We need to organize this, particularly in take form, but we want to see our field sections, our fields first, if we're bringing in individual fields, then our field section, then we want to bring in our date template, and then we want to bring in our task templates, document templates last. And your document templates and your task templates should usually be when it's approved. The reason we suggest when it's approved is because we want your TCs to be able to review to make sure all of the information was filled out correctly by the agent. Because let's say they did say yes to HOA, but you're reviewing the contract and you see in there they're waived HOA. They don't need HOA for this property. We want to be able to give you guys that extra chance of going, okay, well, let me update this field because I have a specific field asking, is there HOA, for this particular property? Let me change this to no, because I don't need to bring in those tasks or those document templates. So that's one thing, as you start to jump into your triggers and as you start to organize things, try to keep that in mind. And feel free to reach out to us if you ever want to, send us a screenshot of your, sort triggers and go, Hannah, was this right? Is it in the right order? And we'll help you guys out.
Let me piggyback on that because there's some good points in there that we want to make sure everyone understands. So
yeah, definitely.
The reason why you're going to want your fields first is because these fields are typically the triggers here. So when you open up these options in your conditions, the fields are one of the things. You can do contacts and you can do documents, but what we see is about 80% of these turn out to be fields that are triggering things. So if you don't add your fields first and you have something that says, add this task template if this field is not blank. Well, you haven't even had the opportunity to put the field in yet. So of course it's not going to add it. So what you want to do is add all your fields first, then go ahead and add some of the other stuff that Hannah was talking about. So when the TC gets on the other side, the second approval stage, they can go through and they can say, I need to change this, or I need to change that. I need to add these extra fields. Then you can apply all your other templates so that they come in correctly before it starts a transaction. But that I just wanted to clarify that the reason fields are first is because a lot of these conditions are field based and you want the field in there. You want the answer to that field before you start triggering your templates to come in, or else it just won't know what that answer is yet in your field because you haven't added that field yet. So the other thing that a lot of people worry about, I hear people ask me all the time, like, hey, I don't want to add in, let me think about how to say this. I don't want to add in a bunch of triggers here because I'm afraid they're going to apply or not apply at the wrong time. You don't have to worry about, especially fields. I want to make sure that everyone's clear on if a field doesn't exist in the property. So if I go over to a property and the field doesn't exist, it's not going to hurt anything. So in your date templates, if you have like 50 fields that are calculating and 49 of those didn't even come into the transaction, they're not going to calculate. Think of it as there's an imaginary wall up in between your transaction of fields that exist and fields that don't exist. And that's why my date template is so long, because you can only apply one date template to the transaction. That is the one caveat to templates. So when you bring in that one date template, you want it to be very thorough. You want it to be every single date that could possibly come into that transaction on like a residential purchase contract, let's say. But then you want to maybe copy that, clone it, and then make a different date template for if it's a Zillow contract, because like in Arizona where I'm at, we have calendar days, but in the Zillow contracts, they use business days. So that I can't just apply my regular date template to that transaction. I'm going to have to apply. So I could have maybe a field, and this is where adding fields becomes important, because I realized that, hey, we have different kinds of contracts here. We have Open Door, we have Zillow, we have seller financing, we have this, we have that, whatever. They all have different date templates associated with them. So what I may do is have a field for my TC to fill out. What type of transaction is this? Is it a regular residential purchase contract? Is it a Zillow, Open Door, seller financing? Is it income property? Depending on the answer to that field, now I can trigger the correct date template to come in. So I may have a bunch of triggers over in my intake form. One is if contract type equals Zillow, then throw in the Zillow date template. If it's Open Door, throw in the Open Door date template. So just another little piece to kind of piggyback off what you were saying. All right. We are quiet today. No questions right now. Any questions on anything you're having trouble with, whether it's documents, anything up here, think about it. If you guys are having issues, definitely let's get those questions answered now. I did see a ticket today where they were asking about intake form notes. They're right here. So if you're filling out the intake form and they type in additional notes, you can find those right here.
Since you're in the document section, there was a ticket that came up in the support queue today that I thought we'd just touch on really quickly. If you are happening to split your documents, or you have a document, you're splitting it, you want to make sure that you're putting it into its own placeholder. So for example, this might be hard to demonstrate, but you could try. But somebody had a file and she wasn't using document templates just yet. It was something we were working through. So she only had one folder, one placeholder. She had a document and she went to split it just like Andrew's showing here on the screen. Well, the confusion came because she would select the same exact file, the same placeholder of where she wanted to put it. So for example, we're gonna have split this 1 and 1, 2 and 2. Now for the file, you could put it into a certain folder, or you could put it into a specific placeholder, one of those files. If you split it and put them both into the same exact file, it will overwrite each other. So you might split it and then you're like, oh, where'd half my document go? It's because you overwrote it with when you put them both into the same spot.
Now, the cool thing is when you come in here, see how I highlighted my file name? Like, hey, you need a file name, dummy. It's trying to make sure I don't make a mistake here. The one thing that's cool is you can come over to file role and I can set a file role on this. And if I have it set up so that the name is automatically going to be changed, depending on the file role, then you can see this red one away, because this file role is going to come in and it's automatically going to name this document addendum number 1. So when this one comes in, it's going to be addendum number 1 BS. Now you can come in here and put it in the right placeholder. So I would find my addendum number 1. Well, that's this one. So let me come down here. I don't know what's actually in here. Okay, so addendum number 1 BS, that's where I'm going to want to put it. That's my and then I can come down here and say, I don't know if I have an FE on that one. We'll put it in counteroffer number 3. But anyway, you would just set those, but now this is automatically naming it. So now it's going to actually let me split this file. You can also delete the original after the split, or you can keep it. That's totally up to you. And I don't know where these went. BS, yep, you can see that one came in, and counteroffer number 3 also came in. Now, I was like, oh, I screwed that up and I deleted the original. Now I can come in and I can actually merge those PDFs again. So I can say, go ahead and I don't even need the file name because I'm going to choose the role. And let's just say it's addendum number 2 FE. And I'm going to stick this back into which folder? The purchase contract fully executed. And I don't need the file name. I delete the originals. No, I'll just leave them. And I'm going to merge those back into one. Oh, I do need a new file name on this. I almost have it. Let's see, addendum number 2 FE. Check on that and see if maybe that's a glitch or if it's meant to be that way. But anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and merge those. And now I have that file up here. So if I click on this, it's gonna be the full 2 pages again. Okay, so I got, oh, actually I might have put 2 of them together accidentally. And then this one down here, there you go, there's that one sheet. And here's the other sheet. So you can see how that works. Anything else to add on to that, Matthew?
Oh, nope, that's the big one. Just be careful with splitting it up and not trying to overwrite it. If you're spreading out, because you've spread it out across now 4 different placeholders, so you have all the different files. If you, depending on what you want to do, merge it, get rid of the original, whatever you need to do, they're all still there.
Yeah, exactly. Unless you hit that button, we're not going to delete it automatically unless you hit that button that says you want it to delete. We're real careful about not deleting things out of the system unless you really want them deleted out of the system. So.
And always advise Costa, just because that's one of those things that once a file is deleted, like a document, we are not able to restore those, retrieve those, anything like that. They're gone. So just be careful.
Oh, and Hannah mentioned this earlier. We kind of breezed over it, but see how like if I'm typing new stuff in here, you have to hit that enter button for it to save. Do not let it sit on purple. If I change this and then go over here to text and then come back to documents, it didn't change. But if I say changed and hit the enter, now all of a sudden this goes back from purple to clear. And now I can go back in here and you can see it was changed. So always remember, if something doesn't save, contact roles, file roles, everything is the same that way. In contacts, when you're updating things, make sure you hit that enter button or else it's not going to save.
So
Okay.
Tammy has a question here. Can you remind me what the toggle button in documents is for? That toggle button, that green from there, basically that's saying this is a fully executed document. You can either find it underneath file buttons where Andrew's clicking, or if you want to navigate directly to that file, that other button that's right next to it, it's that same toggle button. They mean the same exact thing. So if Andrew scrolls down to like brokerage documents or any one of those, as long as you clicking that button, once you know it's a fully executed document, that's what you're basically telling the system, is that this is a fully executed document.
Yeah, so in here, and let's see, this is just so you don't have to click all these buttons because it becomes annoying saying, and we may in the future, me and Shane were just talking about this yesterday, and he mentioned maybe we just go to, instead of clicking on it to go through red, green, purple, and gray, maybe there you click on it and it gives you those options and like a little pull down so that you can just select the one you want. So not on the radar yet, but it's on the list of things in the future. Maybe it's a good UI fix. So you come down here and you can create as many of these you want, obviously. Then you come down here and you say, when I turn this on, what do I want to do? Well, you can see up here what I did. It turned them all green. But if I don't want them to turn all green, maybe I want it to look like that. It doesn't matter what you want to do. Then when you toggle it off, what do you want to do? Well, I want to turn this one red. Let's just turn them all red. So it's easy to see. But here, close this. Now I come back here to this one that was all green. Let me turn this off, turn them red, turn it back on, and then you can see my funky thing that I just did. So by clicking that on, it's going to turn to whatever you set it at. So that's kind of I set it kind of funky just so you guys can see, but most of the time you're going to set these to like green to say, hey, all this is good. Oops. We don't need to mess with this anymore. So now if I turn this off and toggle it back on, it's all green.
I kind of expand on that too. If you scroll up a little bit, Andrew, that M button for missing, this document is missing from our property record. The system will show you how many missing documents you have total up top on your documents tab. So it's really just helpful for that quick reference of what are you still waiting on. It also does reflect fully executed or missing within your one sheets, depending on your settings. So there are some benefits to your button management throughout the system as well. And just again, helping you guys track what you need to stay on top of.
And make sure you're setting those in the templates. Don't come in here on every single file and set these missings. You know what you need for each type of file. Yeah, you may have to update. Maybe like you found out there's a counteroffer coming, and yeah, you may have to manually put that in. But you can put all your regular ones. Like I know I need a purchase contract on every single file. If maybe not HOA, but some of these things. Maybe I need an inspection report. Or you can put them on there and then take them off if you don't need them. Or maybe you have these divided up in a way that your templates only come in if HOA is yes, then the HOA addendum comes in. So you know that they're going to be missing and that you need these for compliance. So these should be preset. Anything in here should be preset. If you have like a priority on a couple of these that you have to take care of right away, you may want to preset a priority to high. so that it comes up here to the health bar and you don't miss that before the end of the first day that it's submitted. So I just added that document right here to high. You can also put notes in here prior to. You can also toggle notes so you can leave it open so you can see them. Put some, there you go. Put some notes in. Save that. You can save it as a new note. So now that'll stay visible. If I don't want it visible, I can just toggle those notes off. And you can set all this up in your template so it comes in this way. So if you wanted maybe this document to have the notes showing and this document down here to have the notes showing, but no other documents, just set it up that way in your templates and it'll come in that way so that you don't have to mess with things when you're starting a new file. Okay. Tammy, actually, I'm going to answer Tammy's question before the one before, just because it's on this page. That high, medium, low you just showed, is that in the upgrade version? That's a great question, and I don't know off the top of my head. I cannot remember. I think that we did these in the $99 upgrade because they're also on the fields. So if you have a field that's like detrimental to you and you have to like figure this out before the end of the day, you mark that high. Contacts, you can do the same thing. So those three buttons, those three priority buttons, the ones on the notes are on the regular plan. The ones that have been there forever are in the regular plan, but I believe the contacts, documents, and fields, those ones are on the $99 upgrade.
Yeah, so I can confirm it is on the $99 one.
Okay, perfect. And the cool thing about that is now unit number, like unit number, maybe I didn't have the unit number and I needed to get that and know what condo it was before the end of the day. It's just a great reminder because now if you're following our rule, no red before bed, you know, you're clearing out all your red on your health bars before the end of the day because those are the things that are due or past due. Now you can incorporate documents, contacts, and fields and notes into that. So now I know before the end of the day, it's not going to turn this not red until I take care of this. Now I have the unit number in there, so I can take that off, take that off. And then let's just say that these actually are medium now. I'm going to turn those to medium. And then I can't get rid of these, but you can see how that changed the health bar. Cool. Let me answer this question and then we'll come back down. So I recently changed a couple of fields to the high priority option. It still shows high priority when I click to edit the field, but when it doesn't, it doesn't show as high priority on my recent transactions added since the edit. Let me reread that and make sure I'm understanding it correctly. So it recently changed. Okay. Shows high priority. Oh, yeah. So if you change that after your recent transactions, it's not going to go back through your current transactions and change those. It's not retroactive like that. We don't want to screw up anything that you did before. So no retroactiveness on that. But if you do go over to your field editor, you can preset those. So if you come over to field editor and you want every single time this new transaction comes in, you want to make sure that there's a, why don't I have it in here? I don't know why I don't have it in here. I'll have to look at that and see. But you can preset those so that they come in on every single transaction. All right. Let's see what the next question was. Would you show how to attach file in an email template? Each document has unique information, but it's always titled the same for every contract, say invoice, and is uploaded to each transaction within the document template. Yeah, so I think I understand what you're saying. So let me go over to email templates. And over here to accept an offered buyer. So down at the bottom here is where you can auto attach documents only if they exist in that transaction. Okay, so if this email template is applying to this particular transaction, let's just say 123 Main Street, it is going to come over here and it's going to look here and it's going to say, okay, they want to attach the HOA addendum fully executed if it exists. So what the system's doing is going back over to your documents at 123 Main Street, looking to see if this exists. If it doesn't exist, it's just going to ignore it and the client will never see any of this stuff. If it does exist, it will take that document from your HOA addendum FE file roll and it's going to plug it in as an attachment on this email. So just set up these. So like my initial buyer email that goes out, we have like I don't even know, there's like 30 documents in here because it could be a short sale. It could be lead-based paint. It could be a income property. It could be, there's a million different things. And in Arizona, we have a lot of forms. We're similar to California in the fact that we have a lot of addenda, we have a lot of forms. So we pretty much have a form for everything. And so what we do is we put all of those in there just in case. So if it's a short sale, it'll come over to grab the purchase contract, and maybe there's an HOA on it. It'll grab the HOA, then it'll go look for the short sale addendum. If it's a residential rental property, it'll pull in the purchase contract. It'll go look for the residential rental property addendum, and if it exists, it'll pull it in. So it's only pulling in what exists in that particular transaction. So you don't have to worry about things being pulled in that don't need to be. Just make sure that you don't assign the wrong file role or something, because in that case, maybe something accidentally gets attached.
Awesome. And then the next question that we have is, what is the trial? What trial plan is what level? And then FireCon, what does that indicate? Andrew, would you go back to the dashboard? And then would you click on the little person icon at the top? If you go to plan and billing, this is where you can see which level you're on right now. In this account, we're on the most open account, or I guess the highest level that we can get. Typically trial plan is on like the lowest level. So it's just on that $69.99. I think it's $69, right?
That's where it defaults, the 69, but you can come in here anytime and change your plan.
And update it, yeah.
Yeah, you can just update it, add the 99. You're not gonna be able to add this automation plan. This is actually going away. This was the old pricing, $7 per transaction. We actually changed that, and the new plan will probably be in effect in the next month, and that is the $299. So it's not $299 is not an addition to the 99. It's instead of, just to clarify. So it's an extra if you're on these two upgrades, then it's an extra $200 to add on all of the auto automation, task conditions, all the new features that came out in that one, webhooks, all that stuff.
And then the second part of your question, what does the fire icon, what does that indicate? Andrew, would you head over to either a property or a document template? Perfect. So that fire icon, what that means is that we've attached or associated a file role to it. Think of your file roles as the thing that you're telling the system, just like what Andrew was just on with the emails, when we said, if it has this file role, then please attach it. This file role is what's telling you that this is the HOA addendum, or this is the purchase contract, fully executed document. So if he clicks back on that little drop down for either one, and then he searches for that purchase contract or whatever language you guys use, he can associate it. And then he's saying, if I upload a file, that file role is the purchase contract. And if I need that specific file to be sent out via email, I don't think we can do file roles via text message, right, Andrew? No?
No. Think of a file role as a way to tell the system what that document is.
Yeah.
So it's like here's my placeholder. It comes in from the document template, right? I have all of these placeholders. This is where this document is going to go when I get it. Okay. So that's why the fire icon is not on there. Now you can preset them, but I'm just telling you. So like, this is the placeholder. As soon as you put that file role on it, now it's saying, go look throughout the system and see anywhere where I have a condition saying if purchase contract FE exists, because I've told it that this, this could have been a PDF called 123 Main Street. But when I set this file role, it renamed the file from 123 Main Street to purchase contract fully executed. Now it's going to go through, and I'll show you some of the places where you can find this. Whoops, sorry. Nope, didn't want to do that. Let's see. Here. Okay.
Did you want to get to smart blocks? Oh, there we go. Okay, got it.
I just hit the wrong control button. Let's see here. So if I go in here and let's go to this, and now actually let me back. See all these little numbers? Too fast. Okay, see all these little numbers on the side? That means that there's one condition to set this off. So if one condition is true, it's going to set this off. So we can go in this one. Actually, I don't want to go in contact groups. I already clicked it. That's fine. And it's going to look for if purchase contract FE exists, then insert this smart block. So it's conditions where these could exist. And then it's also where we just were over in the email templates, where it brings in files automatically based on what you set up the email template like.
The other place that I've also seen it been used is if you want to send out a one sheet and you want to have all of those documents on that one sheet and you want to provide that to someone, it'll also have it there on that one sheet. And all they'd have to do is click on that particular document that they're looking for, and it'll open it up in a new tab, and then they can view that live document as long as you've associated it with that file role.
Yeah, one sheets are really cool for documents. Like a lot of people use them for fields and stuff to update people. I love the document update because
Yeah.
strictly documents, just document. Once a week, they get a document update just to tell them what's still missing. So if you come over to layout, scroll down, you can literally uncheck everything else except for documents. And now in documents, you can say include the placeholder notes, include additional files, include the file links, flag missing documents. You know, you can go through these and look, but it's a cool way to update people on the documents for sure. The other place too that we didn't mention, this is on the higher level plan, but if you go into triggers, this is a great place to say, as soon as I download the document purchase contract fully executed, I want to send out this email to my buyer. Let's say I represent the buyer. I want to send out that email, but only if I brought in that file. So I don't have a file in this. Let's see here. Yeah, I don't have one as an example, but basically under the conditions, what you would do is say, if file role, and you only have two choices on the file role and the contacts, exists or doesn't exist. So it makes it really easy for you. So it's if purchase contracts, you just start typing it in. And let's say purchase contract fully executed, exists or is missing, one of the two. So if it exists, as soon as I download this, what do I want to happen? Let me go ahead and add this first. Apologize, takes a little while when you're on Zoom. There we go. So as you can see, I don't have it set up. Maybe.
Oh, it's a little grumpy.
Yeah, seriously, it's Zoom.
There we go.
In here, you can tell that this doesn't exist, so it's red. So this isn't going to be sent out. But if this did exist, let's just pretend it did, and these two are gone, then it would send this email. But it would look for a date first. It would say, okay, on 3/18 at 9 a.m., 2 days before the inspection contingency end, you know, that's when it's going to send. Now, if it was an immediate, it would just say, as soon as this is in there, go ahead and send it. And this stuff wouldn't be here. So that's the other place that it could be. Now, on our upgraded plan, we haven't even released this yet, but there is also a place on tasks now where you can have all of your triggers in the tasks. Let's say there's 3 triggers in here. We can open up those triggers, and we can also put conditions on the task going out. So we could say, I want this text to go out when I check off this task, but only if, and then put that condition on there, only if the lender exists. This one may be only if the escrow agent exists. This one may be only if I represent the buyer.
And that's only on the scale plan that would be available, correct?
That's correct.
Awesome. We had another question. How did you set up the possible documents that are listed at the bottom of the email template? So Andrew, could you go back over into any one of the email templates? And then, yeah, we're fighting a little bit with Zoom. But if Andrew scrolls down where you see the attach property by file roles, this is where you're selecting that. This is where you're setting that up. So it kind of depends on what you want to do, whether you want it to attach all of them or the newest one or the oldest one. Typically, I mean, depending on the document, you might want to attach the newest one because typically people like to see like the fully executed document. So you might have the buyer sign first. And then, okay, now it's at the seller sign. Okay, this fully executed document. I want that newest document that I've uploaded. But next to that, that's where you're choosing which file role. So again, to that first question of what does the fire icon, this is where the file role and the fire icon mean the same exact thing. So if Andrew clicks on file role, this is where he's choosing which one of these fire icons, file roles, same thing, do I want to attach to this email? So it'd just be a matter of selecting it and then setting our next rule. So our next rule is, do we want to match the main file or any file? And on that property, that's when you're saying this is the main file. This is the file that I want it to attach.
Let's go back a little bit. So on this first one,
Oh yeah.
Selecting all is probably going to be your best practice. It can get a little wonky if, let's say, you put the fully executed contract in there, and then the next day you're like, oh, you know what? I forgot to upload the buyer signed.
Oh, right. I didn't think of that.
So what you want to do is probably go with all unless there's some specific reason why not. But this is really going to control everything because you're not going to upload the buyer signed, or you're not going to upload the fully executed into the buyer signed file roll. You're not going to set the fully signed, but fully executed file roll on a buyer signed. So this is really how you can control this. So let me bounce back over to documents so I can kind of walk you through this a little bit easier on an actual document. What I would do is have separate ones. So if you are going to store all the iterations of this, buyer sign, seller sign, fully executed, you don't have to. You can leave those buyer sign, seller signs over in Google Drive or something. But if you wanted to have them here, you could have either separate file roles, separate placeholders with file roles on them for each of those iterations, or you could only upload the fully executed into the main. So let me click on this document real quick. So this is the main file, okay? And you could put those buyer sign, seller sign versions over here in the additional files. Okay, so you could leave those here. Now that ties into what we were just looking at. On mine, I try to keep it really simple, and so that there's no, like, people don't have to try to deduce what I was thinking. So I always do all, unless it's a really weird circumstance. I put the file role that I want to pick, so fully executed, let's say, purchase contract fully executed. And then I always say match only the main file, because I know the main file is the current best version of that in the way that I do things. You may do things differently, you may have to change it up, but that's the way I do things, is the main file is the current, most up-to-date one. So, and if I upload something over this, it'll actually upload it into that main file folder, and it'll put this first version, it'll automatically move it over to additional files for you. So just so you know that. And then if you just say match the main file, it's not going to grab all, let's say these are pictures, I'm not going to grab these 55 pictures, it's only going to grab the main one. So you got to be careful if you are doing like photos, you're going to want to say all, and you're going to want to say additional files too, because you want it to attach all, 10 appraisal photos that they need to fix, not just the main. But most cases, you're going to select the main file. That's probably the way I see it 99% of the time.
Perfect. Awesome. Next, we have a question. I added a field and section, and it moved to the top and shows the property input section. Is there a way to change that? So yeah, you're going to want to head over to your field editor. So hammer icon, field editor. And then there's a couple ways that we can move things around. Andrew, why don't you show them this? Yeah, sort groups first. So underneath that groups icon, we're going to click on sort groups. This is how you can alter or shift the groups around. If you wanted to move field sections underneath a different section, you can do that. If you wanted to make it that your commissions is the first thing you see, your listings is the first thing you see, you can kind of shift that around here. So if you bring in any field sections, if you're not on that particular group, then this is how you can shift them around. Next.
I put the listing dates. I just moved that over there. I'm going to move it back so you can see that it's just the address.
Oh yeah, perfect. Yeah, so see how listing details is there. All he's done is dragged it back over to listing details. And then if he closes out of this, he can see the addresses at the top. Now, when you're looking at different field sections and you're adding in fields, as you add in each individual field, it likes to bring it to the very top. So if you need to resort that, it's just a matter of clicking on those 6 sort of dots, and then you can drag and drop and move it into the section that you need to. So yeah, if we needed to move the file submitted, and I'm not sure if that one's available yet. Is that available now, Andrew, the move for everyone?
That's a good question, but we can go over it.
It is.
It is available.
Okay.
Oh, fantastic. So if you wanted to move en masse a bunch of, fields, you added them all the transaction dates and you're like, oh my gosh, wait, I need to move these. You can select them, as you can see, but that's what Andrew did. And then from here, now you can choose, okay, what is the actual place that we need to move these? Do we need to move them to a different field section? And it'll show you all of the field sections that you currently have. So if you end up finding out, oh, actually, I need to add in a field section, because I'm missing one, that's how you'll kind of know, okay, where do I need to add that field section? But you can drag and drop them. You can multi-select them. Now, one word of caution with this, when you're multi-selecting, if you select that red delete and you type in delete, goodbye, they're gone. You will not be able to bring back those fields. So be very careful when you're moving around your fields. We don't want you guys to delete things on accident. It's better to leave it in there and put it in a field section that you're not going to use than to delete it and realize you needed it later, especially since a lot of your fields are going to be associated with different task templates, document templates, email templates. There's merge fields with every single field. So just be very cautious when you're in here.
Yeah, so fields, this is one of the big points that we talk about all the time is people,
Mhm.
well, let's say that in their base account, they have a file or a field called closing. And they're in Arizona and they want to change it to close of escrow. But they've already set up some email templates and smart blocks and conditions and things like that. Well, if they delete out closing and they put a new field in close of escrow, now you have to go back through all of your email templates, all of your conditions and make sure, because that's going to delete out that condition.
Yep.
And so your things that might fire at the wrong time because you deleted. So best practice is, hey, if I have an inspection contingency end and I want it to be option end, we'll just come in here and edit the field. Just edit this to option end. And then if you want to, you can update the merge field. Come down here and say, I understand, and update that. And now what's going to happen is it's going to change it here, but it's also going to change it everywhere else throughout the system that you had that prior field connected. So all of your conditions are still correct. All of your smart blocks are going to trigger at the right time, things like that.
One other thing I like
Do-
to add about fields as well is, Andrew, can you go over to the agent intake questions? Because I actually have seen this a lot. I've been doing a lot of, client calls. I've been talking with you guys. Click on any of these, like septic, that one's fine. Any of them, honestly, because I think any of them will give me what I need to see. So when we're looking at intake forms, because you guys know that's usually if you're talking with me that we're going over your intake forms, and we're talking about the way it looks and sort of easeability of selecting stuff, I like to point out the radio buttons. So where it says intake form radio button options, if we change that to yes, instead of it being a drop down, you're instead going to see them side by side or underneath each other, yes or no. I like to touch on that, especially since someone's already looking at fields, Mr. Anonymous or Mrs. Anonymous. I want you to know that you can always make this into radio buttons. And then we always suggest selecting stack options as well, because if you have multiple options, you've got yes, no, maybe, need, received, waived. We want them to be stacked instead of, side by side.
Radio buttons are non-stacked should be like yes or no, or
Yeah.
Stack should be anything that's 3 or more.
Perfect. And then Jana, did you have something to add?
Yeah, just kind of piggybacking on all of this. It's another thing that we've seen with more existing users with the system and making changes to your fields. Do keep in mind, if you have any properties on the front end, the changes that you make with your field editor, so the organization of where that field is at, that typically does move it on your properties. It can be very beneficial, just that way you can maybe add in or adjust the field as you go. But if you don't have that field section pulled in, maybe through your intake form, you may need to go through your properties to add in that new field if you're creating new in this particular tab. So just
that's a really good point,
I
Jana.
show them that because that is something that's not hidden, but a lot of people don't know where it's at.
Yeah. So
if you come into your property, you can just come up here and say, where is manage property fields? Here it is. So you just click on this first one, and then you come in here and you can say, oh, I added tax ID. You go ahead and add that. And I want to add file submitted. And now you don't apply template. That's going to try to apply a field template. Just close it. A lot of people hit this because it's kind of outlined. Just close this. And now in this property, it's going to regenerate your fields, and you can see tax ID is now available. And I can't remember what the second one that I picked was, but it's in here.
It's in here. It's available now. You can bring in whole field sections too. So like if Andrew scrolls to the top and he clicks on the details, so right next to it, and he wants to go to like commission, and he's like, okay, I need to bring in commission fields, or I need to remove commission fields. You can also like go to it and see, okay, what do I already have? What have I changed? Have I changed anything, or do I need to bring anything? If you click on manage, this is where you're selecting whether you want to bring in those particular ones. So like up at the top where it says commission, listing details, intake questions, this is where we're deciding what other fields do we need to add on? Did we bring in any additional fields? Obviously, our best practice is you want to make sure that if you're adding it in and you already have your intake form bringing in that field section, then you don't need to add in any more, because the intake form, any future transactions that you sort of enter in via the intake form, it'll bring in those fields, but it's just for those existing properties. If we need to add in any additional fields, this is one of the ways that we can do it.
I don't know, Zoom's just killing us today, but Anyway, they would reload there. Let me see if I can reload them here.
And then we're just about time. Does anyone have any last minute questions, comments?
Go ahead and stick them in the Q&A. We'll give you another minute or two while I load this up. And I think Zoom is just killing me. So
I was having this issue earlier with Google Meets too. Sometimes it takes so long for it to finally get to where I need it to get to.
well, doesn't look like there's any other questions. So thanks everyone for being here. Appreciate good attendance today. Come back next Wednesday, same time, same place. And if you have any questions in the meantime, go ahead and hit up help at open to close or use the button down the bottom right hand side of your screen to contact our support people. So have a great day.
Perfect. Thank you guys.